Hey, all you rad dads out there.
So, Darryl, welcome to the Rad Dad Show. Who are you?
My name is Darryl James. I am a bass player and songwriter in the Strumbellas. Um, Strangely enough, that was the first band I ever played in. Joined at 30 years old, never played bass. So I've had a illustrious first band career to date. Made fun of in the band for with many of the other members, particularly our drummer Jer, who's like very upset that he was in 150 bands and got to the Strumbellas and I was band one. So yeah, so I'm a bit of a late bloomer in music and always loved music, but didn't really play any instruments until I was maybe 20. Picked up guitar, and obviously 30 I started playing bass in the Strumbellas, and then started Close Kicks. This is sort of my side project. Probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I just started writing songs and on my own, and then started going to like LA and Nashville, and started connecting with other writers and learning better techniques for writing and producing and mixing, and then just sort of stuck with it. It really sort of picked up Close Kicks during the pandemic because I had some time. I was off the road with the Strumbellas, and started releasing music, and now I'm sort of in amongst playing shows with the band and writing records with the band. I'm finding time to do this on the side as well.
Sweet, that's awesome. And you're a dad.
Yes, and I'm a dad. I have three children. I have a 12-year-old daughter, Sophia. I have a 9-year-old daughter, Ivy, and a 3-year-old son named Dax.
Cool. I have two kids. I have an 11-year-old and recently a new addition, a 6-month-old. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
definitely can relate. I can also relate a little bit to the late bloomer kind of in terms of the music. I already mentioned, being in the punk cover band that I started, and I'm 45, and it's something I've always wanted to do. A lot of my friends are musicians, and I'm the lead singer, but only because I have no talent whatsoever in terms of music, instrument playing instruments. So I
Okay.
appreciate. I have so many questions about that. We could talk more about like that kind of journey a little bit later, but let's get into the kind of the dad stuff. Do you consider yourself a rad dad?
I would think so. Yeah, like I um you know really try to you know not put a lot of pressure on my kids to like follow music or you know uh or sort of go in any direction, but I really like to introduce my kids to just kind of everything. Like I remember when I was young, um you know just like having an understanding and an appreciation for whether it be the arts or sports or friendships or community or giving back, like all of these like introductions, I try to like present them. And ultimately, they also kind of get to see me. Many times could they come to festivals with me and get to see me play shows in front of lots of people. And I think that's like a rad component. But overall, as far as a parent, I just really strive to you know present as much of the world to them as I can, so that they're really experiencing more than just one small pocket of what there is to offer. We've traveled a lot with the kids as well, and yeah, I just think so. I guess, yeah, I would classify myself as a rad dad.
Awesome. I love it. There's always kind of different ways that people approach the answer to this question. Some are like, I'm not sure, you got to ask my kids, or there's others that kind of like claim it. And that's kind of the idea, I guess, maybe a bit of the impetus behind Rad Dads is to like be proud of being dad. And I'm trying to also kind of dispel that whole narrative of the bumbling dad who's can't do very much without people helping him, the ones that are perpetuated in society, maybe a little bit on sitcoms and things like that. So that's awesome. Like, is this something that you very like cognizant about? Okay, I'm going to take my kids to the museum because there's this cool art exhibit, or is it more kind of because you have all of these, seemingly have all of these passions, and then you kind of almost take them along for the ride, but you're also cognizant of that as well?
I think it's a bit of both. I do really take pride in what you said earlier, like being able to do a lot of things. Like I cook pretty actively. I try to cook with my kids. I think my wife and I really have a mindset that we're equal, and we both do equal tasks with the kids and try to do, show the kids that, there really is, we're not being defined by the gender. Just because I'm a dad, I have to do certain things, versus, the mom. Like we really take part in those things. So yeah, I think it's a mix as far as taking them to introducing them to, different things that I enjoy. But also you have to have sort of an understanding that, as much as I love something, kids aren't always going to be into it right away. So you have to like sort of introduce it. And if it's not for them, just kind of move on and try to find something else that they're into. And it always does seem to come full circle as my oldest daughter's gotten older. At first she really wasn't into sort of like playing piano and music, and now just kind of leaving her be and sort of slowly introducing the ukulele at some point. Or I encouraged her to play trombone. She's in grade 7 to try band. She's kind of gotten into that, and it's sort of like now the interest is sort of turning back into, oh, maybe this is pretty fun. Maybe dad wasn't wrong with pressuring me when I was younger, or introducing me to these things when she was younger. So yeah, I think it's a mix of wanting to get them involved, and also showing them what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it's a fine line too, right? You don't want to be too much of a, pressure them too much, but at the same time introduce them. I have that same philosophy too, and I I love music. It's a large part of my life. Like I mentioned, a lot of my friends play in bands. I'd rather go to see like a punk show or a rock show at the local pub for $15 as opposed to a movie, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And through that, my son has been to a lot of different shows and experiences and that, and I've have him in music lessons. So we're at that point. He's going into grade 7, so a similar age there, and it's like, hey, do you want to do lessons for the next year? We had to kind of plan, and he's like, I don't know, I don't practice enough. And then I was like, yeah, you don't practice enough, but I'm not going to like force you to practice. But I think it's this important skill of just learning music. There's so many cognitive brain kind of studies that have been done, that sort of thing. But also the joy that I find in music now, I one of the regrets I have, and I'm again not trying to pressure my kid, but is not learning an instrument. And
Yeah.
when I was younger, and I'm hoping that he kind of gets some value. And so he made the choice, like, do you want to do it or not? He's like, yeah, I'll do it. But dad, you gotta remind me to practice. I'm like, okay, I can do that. But I get those sorts of things.
Well,
What
and it really ties into like a good music teacher, a good teacher is like a really like our daughters are doing piano lessons online. And we have this phenomenal teacher, and it's a game changer. Like as much as you as a parent want to say like, hey, try this out, if you can find the right, and like this comes down to like teaching and what I've learned as being a dad, like the value of a good teacher is like, you can't even put a value on it, because the way that your child will connect and learn is such a beautiful thing. And really that's kind of where, what set my daughter off recently, or both of them, as far as playing piano. It's like the teacher. Step one is just like she engages them, she makes it fun. There's just ways in which they can create this sort of environment that music is really good. And then there are some great music teachers, and they're great players, but they can't portray or they can't really engage a kid in how to play. So that that relates to schooling and music. But I definitely think it's good to encourage your kid to play, but like as a parent, try to find that really inspiring teacher, because they can change the world for your kid.
Agree. I appreciate that too, because I am actually a school teacher myself, and have been for 22 years now. And so
Amazing.
I totally get that. And the teacher that my son has had for the past 3 years is really great. There's a great, he goes in person, and it's in a place called Backbeat. And so it's kind of like School of Rock stuff. So what they do in the summer is they bring kids together, form a band, and they get them to go through the band name and process, and then they get them at show at a local place, and they do that kind of throughout the
Nice.
year as well. And they just have a really family feel. It's run by a mom and dad, and it's just like an awesome place, and he enjoys going to it for sure. So yeah, all of those things are important for sure. What are some traits you think make one a rad dad? You've already kind of mentioned kind of, showing your, sharing your passions and introducing them to various things. What are some other traits?
Well, I think patience obviously is important. As much as I think I'm a rad dad, like, don't get me wrong, like I've not been perfect. I think parenting is challenging when you're trying to figure out your career and your emotions and, everything going on. So, I think open communication is really important, being able to talk to your kids openly and just, admitting maybe that you're having a tough time. And maybe that's one reason that you had trouble dealing with something. And, but also sort of being open to, having them speak to you when they're sort of shutting down and, having difficulty sort of expressing their feelings. So, um, yeah, and I think, oh man, other traits like, I think there is at times, you know, value in sort of, being a dad and being stern or, keeping them in line. I think there's value in, um, just, kids need direction and they need, sometimes to be like put back in line, and it's good to be there and to recognize when they get out of line. And, I think, that's an important trait too. And I think that all just kind of comes with being like a kind of an actively involved parent. You're asking your kids questions, who their friends are, you're sort of engaged with where they're going and what they're doing, and you're giving them opportunities to sort of grow. Like, like our daughter's now getting on her bike more and biking to school or biking to different areas of town and having some independence. So, I think those are all things that, it's a push and pull. Like, you're trying to let them grow, but you're also sort of trying to keep them in check because, they can lose their way the odd time. So, yeah, so patience, communication, it's a lot of hard work. I think it's important to work hard at it. It's not like it just comes easily either. I think you're always kind of adjusting.
Yeah, especially if
Yeah,
you're involved, right? Like, I just think about, well, I don't know about you, but my son is involved in a lot of sports right now, and so it's, being a hockey coach as well, and being
yeah,
there at the hockey games at the rink and taking him in the morning. And yesterday we
yep,
spent 3 hours outside, him watching him play baseball, and
yep.
those sorts of things. So it's definitely not easy. Yeah, and so much more is modeling too. Like you kind of mentioned, if they're having a bad day and just kind of opening up that conversation with them, and that's hard. That's a struggle for me because I'm a pretty quiet, reserved sort of kind of person,
Mm.
and so he's taught me a lot. I guess my oldest. Um, what do you think the most rewarding aspects of being a dad is?
Um, there's obviously so many, I think, but having three kids, I think when you see them sort of like grow and, overcome sort of some adversity or get past something that they were struggling with is one of my favorite things is that, um, I think, for instance, like, my oldest, my kids with, the music you mentioned, like you wish you'd learned it as a kid. I was one that wanted to learn a second language. Like I took French through school, um, but never really like got it. And I wasn't in French immersion, and we put our daughters in French immersion, and, our oldest was definitely struggling, grade 2, grade 3, and the entire school system was like, get her out. Like she's no French. It's not for her. Like push her out. And luckily, my wife and I, fought for her, and we took her for, some assessments. And, I feel very fortunate that, this is like a sort of weird debating issue that I had enough funds to help support my daughter with an IEP and get her support and do all those things where, I wish our school systems just funded those things, and I would pay more taxes to ensure that kids don't fall through the cracks that don't maybe have the means like I do to do that. But we were able to get that IP in place for her, and she just learns a little bit differently, and she's in grade 7 and flourishing in French at this point, can speak it fluently, does very well. So things like that, where you you stick up for your kid and that they have it in them, and I think my middle daughter is doing skating. She's in figure skating now, and her growth and the way that she's, finding confidence, and and my oldest daughter's in gymnastics. So again, as they age and they get into these different activities and music and sports and friendships, and they just you help them through difficult times, and you support them, and you see them get to that next level and learn, oh man, maybe when I work hard, it pays off. And then they get to the next level, and they see, and then they just get so much better at it because they're just absorbing it all. It's like, I think that's the funnest part for me, is really just sort of seeing them grow every day and trying to support them and teach them along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I love that, seeing that growth. And my son's really, really, really into hockey right now, and
Cool.
that's all kind of what he wants to do. And so it's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, do you want to support them and push them in their passions, but at the same time, I want them to be this like well-rounded individual. And so it's hard sometimes, like, I really don't want to go to the hockey rink right now. But and when we talk about that's the struggle that we had, kind of the debate between his mom and I, not really a debate per se, but just a discussion, because he's going into grade 7, so going into junior high. So we had to make a decision on where to go, because he is in a bilingual program, a Spanish bilingual program.
Cool.
And so if he continues in the Spanish bilingual, he has to go to a certain junior high where most of his friends were going. But because of his love of hockey, there's also another junior high that's a sports academy, and that integrates hockey. And so it's like, okay, hockey or Spanish. And Spanish and his close friends, school friends, and then or hockey and his hockey friends, and he chose hockey. We looked at all of that. And
Yeah.
so you talk about kind of teaching your kids and having that conversation. So it's like, okay, here's the pros of one, here's the letting him kind of see all of these things that are going to influence this decision. And ultimately it was his choice. But yeah, being an advocate too, you kind of mentioned, I appreciate that, being a teacher as well, is that there's so many, unfortunately, people that kind of fall through the cracks. And yeah, that's a different discussion for a different day. But
Yeah, that's a whole other world, but you get introduced to that as being a dad and a parent and an active parent, and yeah, just wanting the best for your kid, but also the community. I think, I'm very community based, and um, I just think there's so much value in education and investing in education, and it has a ripple effect of good, not bad.
yeah, I agree too. And it's being a school teacher for 20 plus years, you've kind of seen. Right now we're having an election in Alberta, and so education is always at the forefront. And you could get
Absolutely.
those black holes in Twitter and how people really bash teachers, and it's like, oh man,
Oh,
I'm just trying to do good. But there's a lot of support there too for public education, right?
yeah, absolutely, but it could be better.
Yeah. Did you have any fears about becoming a dad?
Um, that's a good that's a good question. Not necessarily. Like, I think the thing that I maybe realized early on, and I think that I was lucky enough with my parents. It's like, I just really feel like, you know, putting in the time and putting in the effort, like, in many ways, uh a lot, like, you're giving more to your kid than, like, maybe a lot of kids in society get. So, and I know my work ethic, and I know I'm a very passionate person, and I'm very engaged. So no, not necessarily that worried. I think, like, it was just something that, I knew I could give. There's lots of love to give, and I was giving lots of love, and I was, wanting to give it, and I was ready to give it. And yeah, so no, not really. I think it's It's like also like building my little community too. These are like this is my little community at my home. And, we get to build and do something special as a family. And that was just something that really excited me. And I didn't rush into kids either, I think is a big thing for me. Like I traveled a ton in my 20s. I traveled the world, and I went and did everything before I had kids. So I think at the time I also felt like, hey, like, I'm ready for this. This is something that I now want to do. This is like the new journey for me. Um, so yeah, no fear really at all. It's been a great experience. And, I think ultimately what I've experienced the most of being a dad is maybe the guilt, of just trying to, my job, I'm away a lot, right? So I do go away, and, um, I think you're just always sort of managing whether, have you done enough or not enough? And were you too hard on them? Were you not hard on them enough? Like, it's just like, it's sort of like once you have children, the world of feeling more guilty, I found has become much more relevant in my life, and trying to sort of, you know, manage that has been probably the hardest thing overall of like, how do I juggle my career and my needs, but also try to meet the needs of my kids, and do that in a way that, keeps me sane.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things too. I guess the goals are, yeah, some of the, I guess, goals behind Rad Dads is to try to promote to dads, like, it's okay to follow your passion and
Yeah.
take care of yourself and do things that you love. Because I think personally, it's just going to make you a better dad in general. Like if you're taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health, as we know, mental health discussions are kind of really at the forefront and becoming more important. And yeah, it's tough though, right? There's that constant balance, and like you said, especially being kind of on the road, which would be really into my next question. I mean, how do you deal with that? Being a dad and
Um,
being a traveling musician, and for your, yeah.
yeah, it's, I think, like I said, I just, I'm always, it's easier now with my kids being older. Obviously, like I'm communicating with them like on their own phones, and I'm FaceTiming them on their own. So that's, an important component. And when I get home, I'm home. It's kind of a different schedule. So like when I'm gone, I'm gone. But when I get home, I'm here. So I can take them to everything, and I'm, involved with them every morning, and I'm there right to the time they go to school. And, where I remember when my mom was a nurse growing up, like I never saw her in the morning. She was off to work at 7:30. Right. So, I'm with the kids, as much as I'm gone, I'm with them way more than most parents, picking them up from school and taking them to school and taking them to their activities, or being a volunteer during their school day. Like I can go be a volunteer while they do activities because my schedule allows for it. So um but it is tough. Like the reality is it's a juggling act. Like I take very good care of myself on the road. That's very important. I eat healthy. I've actually been sober for 7 months now, but even before that on the road, I try to really just know that I'm not home. So when I'm on the road, I need to be taking care of myself and doing all the right things, that when I get home, I'm ready to be the dad. I'm ready to be a good dad. So, those are things I learned. I think early days of the band, I probably drank a few too many beers and got home really tired, and realized that like, whoa, man, now I'm that mad dad because I'm overtired and I'm hungover. And so to balance those emotions, I've really had to like, work hard at like recognizing that this is different, and that the way to keep me consistent in that territory, I guess you could say, is by taking care of myself, being active, being fit, getting lots of rest, uh, maintaining sobriety as much as possible. All of those things just keep my mental health more stable and make me more in tune with my kids and what's going on, and scheduling, and how I can help my wife while I'm gone. And how I can be more active when I get home, all those things. So it's a lot of work. Like it's like I think I mentioned earlier, like you have to, if you have to put in the work to make this sort of lifestyle work. It just doesn't happen. It's just not like poof, I'm a rad dad just because I'm a
Yeah,
musician. It's
yeah.
like, no, it takes a lot of hard work.
Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I've also kind of dealt with sobriety since December. I haven't kind of touched in, and I agree with all those things. Like I've always been one to go to the gym, and I take my son
Yep.
to the gym with me, and I find value in that. But there was, I was like, no, like kind of around December, around my 45th birthday, I was like, I think I'm kind of done with this. So it's like a whole new kind of shift in it for all those reasons. I was hungover, and it's challenging too. Again, a lot of, like I said, a lot of my friends playing bands, and you probably had this experiences too. Like it's kind of like the party thing, right? You go and have a couple beers, watch a band, and then after the band's
Yep.
over, you have some more beers, and you kind of maybe do that again. And so I'm not a touring musician, so I couldn't imagine what the pull is there is so hard. So congrats on that. I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And um yeah, well, I just
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
got
say thanks.
no, it's great you said that because I think I was October and it was just, for me, it was, it's just, it just doesn't work in my lifestyle anymore, and it affects things more than the the negatives are outweighing the positives at this point. And I feel the same. Like I've been 7 months in and I've never felt, I feel amazing. And I just not sure I want to go back to that feeling. And I do know wholeheartedly it's better for my family, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, all of those things. It's better. So at the end of the day, sobriety is I think the route I personally need to take at this point. And really do encourage it for others as you're doing and stuff. I think there's like we live in a culture where we're really normalizing particularly alcohol. Like it's okay, it's like every weekend, it's like it's the thing to do, but we're not sort of like recognizing how bad it is. And I think we need to start raising more awareness to the negative impacts of it, and how it can continue to affect your life, especially as you get older. It's one thing drinking in your 20s, but when you're drinking in your 40s and 50s, like I'm 44 now, so it's just not the same world, and it impacts you greater. And mental health is definitely more relevant for me in my 40s than it ever has been in my entire life. So it makes more sense to as I manage my mental health, to also manage sobriety and exercise and all those things that help your mental health.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like the more, it's not like I did like this, like I'm gonna be like sober. Like it was just like I just didn't have very much fun the last time, and I was like the last few times I was like drinking. I'm like I don't know, this wasn't as fun anymore. And it's like I don't feel good. If I get drunk then I'm like out for like 2 or 3 days because my body just doesn't metabolize it, and it just wasn't fun. And so I've kind of just slowly like looked at just consuming various articles and things about sobriety and stuff. And yeah, it's crazy how much we normalize it. Like I'd never really had that perspective before. And now that I see that, it's like I get actually kind of angry in a sense. The Oilers they have just outside Rogers Place, they had this, they called it the Moss Pit, where people can go and watch the games outside. And they made a decision in the second round because of some issues that happened there, to not allow people that are under 18. And that infuriated me, in the fact that here's this supposedly supposed to be a public space, and now you're eliminating families to going to this place because you're more concerned about selling beer to young adults. And it's just like, and I know that happens and it exists, but it just, it kind of pisses me off. And maybe I'm just that old man shaking my stick.
Exactly.
And from those conversations too, like I've had conversations with my friends, and they've texted me after, like, hey, like, oh, you stopped drinking, like when did you do this, why did you, and we've had those conversations. Oh, thanks. I had one from a colleague of mine. Hey, thanks for that, like you've inspired me to try to do it too. And it's kind of this cascading effect. And the struggle for me was like, can I go out and have with my friends who drink and not have one? And the savior for me is near beers. I've been discovering different near beers and I love them. I'm like a strong proponent of, we should have a rad dad near beer. There we go.
It's the funniest you said that, because I didn't have any near beers for the first about 6 months. And then I kind of like I tried them, same thing. And like the last like 6 weeks, I guess, or whatever, I was just in Atlanta recording a record with Strumbellas for 2 weeks, and the near beer market in the States is amazing. Like they got all these IPAs, and they all taste great. Like, and it's really helped me get over, I think, what will help me more long term in my sobriety, is because a lot of times I like the taste of beer and I just want to go out and have one or two, but I don't really like the feeling that comes with it, and it's hard. Like, you have one or two, it feels good. Then, 3, 4, 5. Whereas like, I have one or two near beers and it's done the job for me. It's perfect. And you don't feel as sort of awkward. It looks like you're having a beer out with friends. And yeah, but I wholeheartedly agree. Like the near beer market has sort of blown up. You can get it everywhere now. It's such a different world. And I'm really thinking it's just really awesome, because I've embraced it as well as much as you have. It's been super
Me
fun
too.
to
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like even like jam, for example, we the dad religion thing, we do try to jam once a week. And it's more just, get together to have some fun, and they all still continue. Everyone, so whose turn is it to bring the beer? Well, like, I'm kind of tapped out of that. But then my friend whose space we use, he has a recording studio in his basement, and that's where we jam as well. And there's a beer fridge. And the last time we went to jam, he's like, "Oh, hey, I bought you a bunch of near beers." And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I can continue to have fun with my friends without having that feeling of the alcohol piece, for sure. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome.
It's super helpful.
You kind of mentioned your parents a little bit when you were talking about like the fear stuff. Would you be comfortable sharing the relationship with your dad?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad he is definitely, I got more my communication and sort of emotional side from my mom, for sure. My dad's pretty quiet, doesn't show a lot of emotion, but he's a guy that's always been there. Like, I used to play a lot of golf, when I was a kid. And if I was walking up the ninth hole, like playing a tournament, my dad was waiting, watching. Or, I was very much a hockey player growing up. I played a ton of hockey. I actually then turned into refereeing when I went into university. I refereed it to a very high level, became like a level 4, was doing like, I lined in the OHA, which is like junior hockey, and did championships and made it very far. And my dad would, same thing. I'd never know he was going to be there, but he would just always know my schedule. And he would, I'd look in the corner and be like, "Oh, there's my dad. He's watching me."
Nice.
And he might be gone before the game's over. He wouldn't even stay and say hi to me, but he was just always there. He was just always present and always like quietly watching what I was doing and where I was going. And, I think that's kind of what I learned about, sort of just being there for my kids and just sticking with it, and always showing up, and just doing that alone. Like, you don't have to go over the top. You don't have to, buy them all the presents and get them all the extra stuff. Just showing up means the world. And I think I learned that most from my dad, is that he just always was there, always showed up, always wanting to be there. And yeah, it was just like really nice memories of all that. So I definitely, I think for me as a dad, try to take the combination of my mom. Like you said, you have trouble communicating. Well, my mom, there was no way I could have trouble with her. She just would wait until I spoke. She would just make me talk. And I really value that, because I think it's something that I can't leave something stewing. I can't leave like if we're arguing with my wife or my children, like I got to deal with it. We got to talk it out. We got to figure it out. Where my dad would, he wouldn't talk to me for like 4 days, 5 days if we were that. So I think that was, definitely something I learned that I didn't like from my dad was that he would just shut down, and I wouldn't know if I was, we were on good terms again. Like, are we okay? Are we not okay? Like, I didn't really like that side of it. I like to know where I stood. And so I think, my dad taught me that, I want to teach my kids. I don't want them wondering whether I'm mad or what's going wrong with me. I want to talk to them and figure it out and let them know. But that major thing was, just always being there, always showing up, knowing what my kids are doing, being active, being engaged. My dad was always there to support anything anything I wanted to try. Like, he was right there being like, as long as I put the effort in, as long as I worked hard, my dad would support it. If I was slacking off, if I wanted to go play hockey and I didn't show up to practice and work hard, he would let me know about it, and he wouldn't want to support it. But if I showed up and I worked hard and I did my job and I put the effort in, then wouldn't matter what I wanted to do, he would be there to support me. I just had to put the effort in. So I think that was a major lesson from my dad.
Nice. I tried to, yesterday we were at baseball, the same sort of thing, they were doing warm up. My son was kind of goofing around with his friend, and that kind of drives me a bit nuts. And I'm like, hey,
Yep.
slow, like, because the same thing. I'll support you with anything, but again, like, let's put some effort in and have some, almost like self-respect in a sense that, like, make it worth everyone's time. And I want you to learn some skills, and not, I want you to have fun with your friends for sure, but also at the same time, let's do it. So
well, and you have to remember, like, yeah, and you have to remember, like, especially at those younger things, like, people are volunteering their time to be there to help you, right? Like, coaches and all of these things that you have to realize that, like, they're not like making any money being here, like taking their nights away from their kids to show you how to do the thing that you want to do. So it's kind of it's like teaching them that respect piece. Like, they're here doing that for you. The least you could do for them is listen, and put the effort in, because, that's the sacrifice they're making. You have to make that same sacrifice. And again, we all are kids and silly and realize that's part of it. But again, I think that's being a good dad. You have to draw the line in the sand sometimes and say, like, hey, like, you got to respect the people and what they're doing and the time they're giving you, and try to tell them that in like a respectful way that they learn from it. And it's something, like I said, it's hard work. You kind of have to keep at it. I think a lot of the qualities I got from my parents is because they never gave up. They kept telling me, and still to this day help me, so I don't think it ends, right?
Yeah, definitely not. Do you see your dad ever kind of popping up at some of your shows there, kind of in the corner? You saw him as you're reffing and playing hockey, but like, what about the music piece?
Yeah, definitely my dad's more of a sports guy. Like, he loves the sports. So the music part, he, has been there and supportive, and he's always asking questions when I'm doing. But I think with the late night shows, as he's gotten older, it's not really the industry. But we played a show last year in Peterborough, which was like it was like a show in the park, and I think, like, we had one of the biggest turnouts, which is kind of a hometown show for us. I think there's like 11,000 people
Oh
that
wow,
came
right
out.
on.
The free show in the park, and my dad came to that one. I didn't know he showed up, didn't know he was there. He left beforehand, but sent me a text after, just being like, man, you guys are really good. And that just puts a smile on my face with my dad, because it's just like classic character of my dad, that he is always there and always supportive, and will come to the things he can. But yeah, music's definitely the sports though. Like, it's funny, my sister's son is really good in hockey, and he's in AAA, and his draft year's coming up, and my dad's sort of doing the same thing with him. Like, my dad's real passion is hockey.
Yeah.
Just loves, like, knows all the referees that are reffing the game, and all the stats and the players. So that's really where, so we still have great conversations about hockey, and go watch hockey. We'll go watch hockey games together in town, like our junior team. And I know he'll be excited for my son, which I hope he plays some hockey. I still play, like, I played in the Juno Cup with the musicians.
Yeah, that was just here, right? Just at the
I didn't play this year,
okay.
unfortunately, but I've played 3 or 4 years in the past, and I played hockey my whole life. So hope to have my kid in hockey. I'm a little scared of what you're saying, because I lived and breathed hockey. Like every weekend I played summer hockey, I played AAA, like that's all I did. Um, that's a little scary. I don't even know how my parents did it, to be honest. I'm like, how did you even do it? Like it was like every weekend, like couple nights a week. So I definitely want to introduce my son, but I'm a little worried about what's going to come with that introduction.
And the cost, that's what I'm kind of seeing right now. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this camp's going to cost so much. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
You kind of make it
yeah.
work. But you also see, you mentioned that like the community piece. There is a community there too. And I've seen that being a coach and stuff is, like, Team Snap, which is kind of like the app we use to communicate with teams. And it's like, hey, so
Yep.
and so can't make, I can't drive them. Someone pick them up. And there's always like 3 or 4 parents. Yeah, no worries, no worries. So, it's, yeah, as you hear some sort of stories about the negative of hockey, Hockey Canada, the abuse and all that kind of stuff. At the grassroots level, it's not like that. It's all
Absolutely.
about fun and building community, and I find that rewarding. But yeah, some days I just don't want to be at the rink.
Absolutely. A
So
nice summer day is the last place you want to be. Right?
yeah, this past season I was like, no, I'm just going to be the assistant coach, and you can have some outs out of that. Take that. Who's your team? Who's your NHL team? Your fans?
Well, I kind of love every Canadian team. Like if they're doing well, I'll jump on the bandwagon. Obviously I have soft spot for the Leafs. Like I like, grew up in this area and know them, but the Oilers, obviously McDavid and everything that they're doing is pretty cool. So to be honest, it's one of those things that like I don't, as much as I love hockey and was in it, I don't watch a lot of it. I'm not super engaged in it. I love to play it still. I play Tuesday mornings with all of the 911, like the police and ambulance in my community. I go out at 10 a.m. and bang the puck around and get a good sweat on and still love the game, but not to that level where I'm like following teams and I'm wearing jerseys. I've never kind of been that hardcore fan, even with music. Like I have my favorite bands, but I've never got to that like really like I don't want to say it's like obsessive, but it can, on some level, people like have all the memorabilia and all the things, and I think that's amazing. I love it. If that's you, but that's never been me. Like I just always I love things and I love the sports and I love music and I love these things, but I also like love so many other things. Like I love playing tennis, I play squash, I'm good at golf, like I love hip hop, but I also love folk. And I also love a good jazz record, so it's like I just love to dabble so much that, it's like that's my obsession. My obsession is like liking a whole bunch of things and getting good and appreciating tons of different things. Like I'm pretty good at photography because I like taking pictures. So I've learned that, and even in this project at Close Kicks, like I'm getting good at making videos now. Like I have to do a lot of my own videos and socials, and it's like, man, I'm getting pretty good at making videos on Final Cut. Like, so yeah, that's my obsession. Yeah. How many things can I figure out to
There you
do?
go. I love that. Kind of like jack of all trades, master of none, or more of a renaissance man.
I would say, yeah, maybe Renaissance. Like I get good at it, right? In the early days of before I got into music, I actually was in golf. I was a turf manager. I went to school at the University of Guelph, and I worked on the maintenance side of golf courses, and I did that for like 17 years. I had my own consulting business in the early stages of the Strumbellas world, where I, got off the golf course and then sort of consulted with different golf courses around the region because it gave me the flexibility to be in the band because it was my own business. But I got really, I was working with machines and tinkering with, lawnmowers and blowers and line trimmers and, digging irrigation, fixing irrigation, like 12-inch pipe and all this crazy stuff that I was doing. So, as an arborist too, I was like taught people how to run a chainsaw at one point. I taught at Seneca College as a chainsaw
Oh
instructor.
wow.
I have all these crazy things that I've done. So yeah, I think like I'm pretty, like this morning I was fixing all of our bikes. They all needed maintenance. So I like, fixing all the gears and the brakes and tuned it all up and watching TikTok videos because I kind of forget, but then I remember and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm like again, that's what I take pride in. Like I like I make my own bread, I make my own pizza dough, like, and I like getting good at it. And I do have a lot of friends that I think when we talk a community, like that's the people and the friends that I've been able to sort of like have in my adult life are people like that too. They're just dads and partners and friends that like really take pride in like figuring stuff out and doing a good job and exploring the different worlds on how to do it and sort of always wanting to learn and never give up on that idea of learning. And that's kind of what it's like I have a group of friends that like it's like we're always inspiring each other. It's like, what did you figure out? What are you doing now? And then challenging yourself to sort of do that same thing or push your boundaries.
That's rad. I like that. It's really, build each other up for sure. And I feel that that's similar with my friends, they're musicians, and I was like, I want to start a band. Wow, but you're 40,
Yeah.
you're 42. It's like, I don't know, like, so that's the talk that kind of goes in your head. And I just literally asked my friends, hey, do you guys want to do this show? It's like, do some Bad Religion covers and see where it goes. And they all played in bands, and they're like, yeah, that sounds fun. And like, again, continue to this day. We've played, 10 shows or so, and we've been going for 3 years, and we have fun with, it's nothing serious, and we're not doing originals, but we're all just, doing fun, having fun. And so just a creative outlet for me and something that I've always wanted to do. And then same thing with the Rad Dads kind of thing. Like it started just being inspired by a guy in Vancouver, really. I reached out, I was like, hey, what do you guys do? And he's like, oh, you should do one in Edmonton, and just kind of grew from there. And same thing with the podcast. I started it just on my phone, like with this weird app. And then my co-host Brett, he kind of came on board. He's like, I'd like to be involved. And
Nice.
he kind of took it to a new level, doing YouTube stuff and like this. And the pandemic, and the the advent of Zoom and stuff allowed us to have these sorts of conversations and just easier. But you can now have this video that you can kind of play with and do. And you talk about editing stuff. It's like, I was learning on GarageBand how to edit videos and edit songs. So I appreciate that. That's rad. That's kind of why you're here. It's kind of that inspiring piece. Let's transition. Let's got basically two questions left. One about your kind of current projects. Here's a chance to kind of promote yourself and tell us what you're doing and what are happening in your world. You talked about your new EP. You have your solo project, Close Kicks, and then obviously the Strumbellas stuff. Share.
I think Close Kicks was born on the idea of like collaboration. Like I said, I started writing early on, and I just had like these magical moments of writing a song with someone. Like you'd never met someone, and then you go into a room and you kind of bounce ideas off each other, and 4 or 5 hours later you have this like piece of art that never existed beforehand, and it's like super 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 cool. And you end up having this bond with this person that seems to just never go away. Like once you write a song with someone, you're just like, you're connected in this like ether, and it's just like you could see them 10 years later, and you're just like, and you could write another song with them, but it's just this really cool place to live. And I think Close Kicks was really born from that, because essentially Close Kicks is like a good pair of sneakers. It's that sort of a good collaboration is like a good pair of sneakers. It just feels so good, and it's just something you want to do or wear all the time. So it really, from all of that writing, I just got this huge catalog of songs that I just began to kind of like fall in love with them. But then also learned by writing all these songs was like, well, I can write all these songs, but like, who's going to produce them and put them out, or who's going to mix them? Like, I normally have a band in the Strumbellas, and we all do our parts. But like with this, it was like, no one else was going to do it. So I just, I would pitch some of the songs to like my publisher and see if I could get them in a commercial or something. nothing was happening. And eventually it just kind of became like, man, I would like to put some of these out. Like maybe I should just sort of take the leap and learn, I know how to play bass and guitar, and I can figure out, I started learning more as with the Strumbellas. I was like, recording a record, I'm like watching the producer and the engineer and like how they use Pro Tools and how they record guitar and how they do this. So I just started he started incorporating all of those little things, and eventually just, got the idea of like, hey, I gotta do this on my own. I wrote these songs. I'm just going to start producing them and performing on them, and find ways to get them out. And really that's all I've done since 2021. I've taken these songs that I've written with other people, and I started producing them and putting music behind them, and then I would get them mixed by someone else, or sometimes I would mix them, or sometimes I've collaborated. There's a number of songs. I have a hip hop song out with a friend of mine in town, Lewis, or Luwop is his artist name, and folk songs and just different things to just, hey, this is me, this is what I'm trying to do, and these are songs that I've written with people. These are people in my community. I can introduce, I try to introduce those artists on my socials of who they are and other songs they've written and what they've done in the past. And I think all of that brought me to this EP, where it was like, okay, I've written with so many people, I've produced these songs, I feel ready to do this on my own. Like I can write my own songs now. I can do this wholeheartedly by myself, and I can write the lyrics, and I can tell my stories. Like these are going to be like my stories specifically, and what I go through in life, or how I manage things in my life. And so that's kind of what I did. So I just, I kind of had sat down and for a number of months, just went through voice memos on my phone where I kind of write melodies and piece songs together, and started like putting ideas together about what I wanted to talk about, and just, started building the demos. And then luckily, which I encourage, I was able to apply for a grant. There's lots of grants in Ontario, the Ontario Arts Council grant, and they gave me a recording grant to hire some local musicians. So basically what I did was I produced all the songs and performed most of the parts, and then I went into a local studio in Peterborough and hired some local players, and basically said, hey, here's what I have, can you put your color and your flair on these ideas and make it kind of in line with what I've done, but make it your own, and add fills, and that's, what they did. And it was like a glorious feeling that you were like, all of a sudden, like these, like, really rough ideas started to take shape. And then I finalized the project by mixing it myself. Like I've been learning mixing, and took the time to mix it. And so, something that, I've just been really, really proud of in doing. And it was sort of like, I was doing it. Unfortunately, my mother passed away about a month ago. And during that whole time, she was sick for about a year. It was about a year ago we found out she had stage 4 melanoma. I started, like, that's when I really started working on the project. And my mom was like always that person that was like, you can do this, like you have a great voice, like just put it out, like just do it, like just keep going, so I was fortunate enough before she passed to show her the EP. Like I was like, here, I did it. Like I got it done. And it was like, yeah, just like a sort of a magical moment of like going through that sobriety to like writing everything on my own, to like, and then in the end being able to show my mom what I did, and her being, obviously super proud. And it was just like, yeah, so it's sort of like, I kind of maybe tailed off there a little bit with the moment, but it was like that this EP means the kind of the world to me, because it was like me kind of taking a lot of risks, and a lot of like going outside of my comfort zone, and doing, following my heart and feeling what was right. Um and having no one other than really me to sort of guide the way, and follow my heart on what felt good to me. And that's really like, you know really scary thing as an artist, but it's also like very liberating when you finally get it done and realize that like you can do it and that you can do something you're proud of. Um and no matter what anyone thinks, it's something that you believe in it. It's something that you believe in and something that you're really proud of. So yeah, as a journey as an artist, this was like a huge step for me. Oh, that's an Amber Alert, strangely enough. We're talking about dads here. But yeah, so that's yeah, sort of, I know I sort of spun off
No.
on that. That's essentially what Close Kicks is. It's, you know, doing things where I'm connecting with my community and creating art and pushing myself and pushing the boundaries of what I can do, um and just being proud of that I can do that at 44 years old. And I think we're really in a really lucky time as far as like DSPs like Spotify, that you can put out music the way we can. And I'm really trying to take advantage of that. Like 20 years ago, you couldn't do this, you know, and I think I see the opportunity that I can do this now, and I have this opportunity. So I'm going to really try to, you know, show off the people that have helped me and show who they are, and also, you know, try to push myself to do great things.
Thanks for sharing that. It's sorry about your mom, and what a special thing that you were able to kind of show that before her passing. And
Yeah, it was really yeah, really meaningful, and why I want to sort of take, you know, the opportunity to share as much as I can about this EP, because she was the one that, you know, at the end of the day, I think, yeah, my mom was just like, I wouldn't have half the confidence without her. And every time I doubted myself, she was always like, don't do it, you got it, you can do this, you know. And even I, as much as at the time thought it was so annoying, like, you know, now that
shout
she's
outs to
gone,
the moms, right? Mother's Day was just the other day, and definitely kind of
yeah, moms are very important.
they are. Yeah, I appreciate that DIY kind of ethic you have, ethos you have. It's really, to me, like, I'm really immersed in like the punk rock stuff, and that's my, if we were to talk about obsessions, SNFU is my band, obsessive band. But I
Nice.
love a lot of punk stuff, and I guess if I learned anything from punk rock, it was like kind of that DIY, kind of doing it yourself. And that's what we do with the Rad Dads. And I was like, I just do things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And
Sometimes.
it seems like you have that sort of thing. So yeah, appreciate you being here to kind of share that. And we um so like, do you have any plans on touring it or anything? Like it being kind of like a solo thing? It always becomes a challenge, right? You kind of mentioned that there's collaborative type stuff. So that's
Yeah,
challenging to bring people out, obviously, but then you had to hire kind of this band. And like, what does it look like? Is it something you're just kind of putting out there and maybe not doing live, or?
it's, for me, live, it's locally, like what I've done in the way that you've done. Like I do a lot of things locally to give back to charities. So I'll perform at different things that I can donate my time and money to, locally at the Boys and Girls Club, or you know, community cares, just anyone, you know, at schools. Like I went to a high school last year, and they were performing one of our Strumbellas songs, and was able to, like, you know, just spend the whole morning like going over music and different things. So you know, I'm also involved like on the programming committee at my local theater, so I help try to schedule bands and try to have my insight on those levels. And my, a couple of my friends, we started, it's cool that you say like you're doing these concerts. We started what we call, and I loved it in the Strumbellas, we always played these home concerts when we were touring Edmonton. We played them like have a day off of a show, and someone would say, hey, why don't you come play our house? And we did, and we get a fresh cooked meal, and you know, we, you know, obviously some drinks and a bed to stay in, and it was all these, and we just met all these amazing people, and they were just like blown away that the Strumbellas would come into their living room and play as loud as possible and smash up, you know, like I don't even know how, like, but their kids were there and everyone was there. It was just like so many beautiful experiences that I wanted to bring that to my community. So we started like what we call their homemade concerts, and we've done 2 of them so far. And we just have, you know, really try to support local artists, and I've performed at them. And my buddy Lou Appas, he's just this incredible hip hop artist in our community from El Salvador. That is like, it's unbelievable that this talent is in this little town I live in called Lindsay, and he performs all the time. So yeah, like those are the ways that I'm trying for Close Kicks, is to just kind of engage in that community and collaboration in my community. Because the problem with the Strumbellas is like, that's kind of my job and my priority. So it's really hard for me to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go play this show on this day for Close Kicks. And it's like, well, a Strumbellas gig at, Vancouver Folk Fest came in, that's going to pay your salary.
Yeah.
I can't really be like, oh, sorry, Strumbellas, I can't play. I got a free show I got to play for Close Kicks here down the road. So, it's really hard for like, so I don't want to like be in a position where I'm like promising, oh yeah, I'll show up and play here, and then I have to cancel last minute because my job, it has to take priority. And so so that's where I'm trying to like fit it into these little home concerts, and just little things I can do in the community. Anytime like anyone asks me to come out and speak or play a couple songs locally, I'm there. If it's like any time that I can support the arts in my community, I'm there. So that's kind of where I'm trying to use Close Kicks in that realm, in that space, opposed to like out there trying to tour it and find a band. And in that world, I want to kind of to live online and be fun with the socials and do what I can in my community with it, and really engage it in my community, but also know that, the Strumbellas is what's going to, take me to the different parts of this country and other countries, and just kind of, that's the world it has to sit in at this point.
That's sweet. I like that, homemade concerts. My friend in his old house would host similar sort of things. Like, the band was in town, you kind of reach out to them. He called his basement the Fart Ranch, and so they would do those. Steve Albini actually mixed one of his recorded part of his record for one of his bands, and he had him stay
Wow.
at his house, and I think he did a little basement show sort of thing. And what he does is
Nice.
he gets like a local artist to do up like a limited edition poster, like gig poster kind
Yep.
of thing. So each person that comes, so he charges whatever, there's a charge to get into it, but it's you get a poster. It's like silkscreen kind of numbered poster. He brings in a keg of beer from like a local brewery, so it's like all you can kind of drink. And
Yep.
again, not to make money or anything, just to cover costs. And then you get a sweet little intimate show in his basement, which he, like I said, entitled The Fart Ranch. And so we've been kind of talking about trying to bring those back. That this COVID thing is somewhat have subsided, and allows travel again, for sure. All right,
Yeah,
thanks for
it's
sharing.
magical.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great. Keep it.
if you can do that locally, do it. They're magical moments.
Yeah. Last question. Any words of wisdom to the rad dads out there listening? Any new dads, upcoming dads?
I think like what I mentioned earlier is just, I think follow your heart, do what you think's right. And, um, I think it's fun to push the boundaries and to challenge yourself and define new things. And I think your kids see that. I think don't just because you, like we said, you become a dad, that all of a sudden, life needs to end. I think you inspire your children by following your goals and your dreams. And but you also, the challenge in doing that is finding the balance. And that's the real challenge. If you want to pursue your own goals, you sometimes you got to stop and step back and realize, you do have a family, and you got to, you can't push as far maybe as you want to when you were single, and go aimlessly. You're always kind of having to like pull back a little bit and check in and make sure things are going okay, and you're at things and you're engaged as a father or rad dad. And that being a rad dad also is fully supported by having a rad mom. I have a very awesome partner, where we both encourage ourselves to follow our goals, and we both have to pull back and support and go move back and forth. And I couldn't be a rad dad without a rad mom. They're a very important piece to being a rad dad. So work with your wife and your partner and push the boundaries, but know when to pull back and be that rad dad again.
Awesome. We'll end it there. Thank you so much.